They tell you, so it's official. So if you don't want to be recorded, go mute and everything. As we had our last gathering, we were realizing that Zoom is a wonderful tool that we're getting older, and it's more difficult to travel. And this is a wonderful way to communicate and get together, and just hearing the conversations beforehand were very nice. And so our plan was, in between each of the issues of our newsletter, that we would have a talk, like a more official talk. But then I was also hoping that we could have a less official, a more informal talk. And this is kind of the more informal talk, that we realized that John and I are both hikers, and that we were leaving practically on the same day to walk the Southwest Coast Path. And so we thought this would be a great opportunity. We're leaving on May 1st, more or less. And so we needed to get this in before we headed out. So the first part of this will be, actually, the walk I'll be taking is more or less the exact same walk that I took in late July of 2016. So I just have some slides, PowerPoint of that trip, just to kind of get us in the mood. And then John his is going to be a little bit more work. I'm not going to be carrying my luggage, but he'll be carrying everything. So if we could get started, I have a PowerPoint, Chris. So if you could can I share my own, or you have to share that for me?
Yep, you should be good to go.
Very good. So let's see, make it a slideshow. Does that look good?
Yeah.
Yep. So I just wanted to start out with my information. So if you have any questions, you can contact me, or even if you need to ask other officers questions and you don't get their information, you can contact me here. I also wanted to make sure that Ron James is going to be speaking about Cornish folklore on April 9th. So hopefully you can make that one too. So a trip around the peninsula. I found a quick map. It's 600. The Southwest Coast Path is 630 miles long, starting in Minehead and ending up here in Poole Harbour. The walk I'm taking will be from St. Ives to Falmouth. So it's around, like, there's small peninsulas there too. And it's just more than 100 miles, or about 160 kilometers. And here's more specifically. So St. Ives, going around the different, there's the peninsulas there, and heading up in Falmouth. My Cornish ancestry, my great-great-great-grandfather was a Lady, and my great-great-great-grandfather was also was an Ede. And Ede's son came over, and Lady's daughter came over, and they're mostly from this area, from St. Erth and Zenner and Brieg and St. Hilary. And also I'm a big fan of the prehistoric stones, standing stones. So it's a wonderful area. It's just, it's almost like a fairy tale going there. So, you take the trip overnight and you get there the next morning kind of tired, and you have to find a train. And so I took a train to Truro, and I am going through a company I think it's called Western Country. And it's a small family business. There's just a couple guys running it. So one of them picked me up in Truro and took me to my B&B in St. Ives. And the first day I was just getting my bearings, and I walked around St. Ives. It was at the very end of a heat wave. So that was nice. The first day was really warm, but then after that, for the walking days, it was really quite cool and comfortable. And then I got onto the path. And I have to, first of all, these are all from my phone. So when they're blown up for my presentation, they kind of blur a little bit, but they serve their purpose quite well. Also, I have to say that, so 2016 is when I retired from being a school teacher. And I was in pretty good shape. But the Southwest Coast Path is a coast path. And that kind of implies that you're going to, from the erosion over the millions of years, that you're going to go way, 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 way up and walk a little bit and then come way, way, way down. So there were very few patches where there was actually, where you walked quite a bit, either up on top of the cliff or on the bottom. And so I'll just say I cheated quite a bit, but I walked the whole way. I took the public footpaths. The public footpaths were wonderful, and they were kind of complicated. But it was, I just retired. This was my challenge, and it was a very nice adventure. And only one time I got majorly lost. There were a couple of times where I was semi-lost. And the first day is only like 6 miles to Zenner, and Zenner, but it was also the most difficult day by far. I didn't know what I got myself into, because between St. Ives and Zenner, there's a lot of small, rock climbing, and didn't know if I was going the right way. And finally got closer to the Zenner, and I found a couple of ladies that were just as lost as I was, and so we made it the rest of the way. Zenner had a pub and a small hotel and a church, and Zenner is where some of my relatives came from. My mother was very much into both the Cornish American Heritage Society and a couple of societies from Wisconsin, where I live, and did some wonderful research. And this one, she found berrymen going back to 1545. And so I found some berrymans there. So I was kind of happy to see a namesake. And the nice thing about the walk, even because I didn't specifically take the path, was that I was exposed a little bit more to the culture of the area that I really enjoyed. Everyone was so friendly. One day I got majorly lost and had no idea where I was going, and thought I was there, but I certainly wasn't there, and ended up on someone's property, and I was rather anxious or nervous, and whenever something like that happened, they were, "Oh no, where are you going to? Let me help you." So it was a wonderful trip. I like the signage there. I got the humor of it. I think, caution police horses, as if the horses could read to be cautious. But there's a few signs like that. They're kind of fun. And it was just fun to see, Penzance and Land's End and all the names that I've been exposed to over the years. The second or third night was here in St. Brian. So it was the end of July, and so the flora was beautiful. It's the end of, it's almost like late summer, and I'm happy I'm going on May 1st. Usually my parents traveled to Cornwall in early May, late April, early May, when they could see the spring flowers. So I'm looking forward to that. So here's my great-great-great-grandfather, Lady. At this point, I was touring with a cousin that you'll see in a couple minutes. Yep, there she is already. So as my mom was doing her research, and it was mostly, I would say, the late 70s and early 80s. So everything she did was Later on, she did use a computer, but a lot of her communication was done through snail mail. And she got to know this third cousin of hers, Joan Howells, that lived in Marazion. And so whenever they went over there, they would do something together. And she also has she has 3 daughters. One that I have contact with, Jane, and Jane is really into the diaspora and Cornish connections and such as well. And their yard was just filled with flowers. Another bit of Cornish humor. Took this picture in, I think it was a tennis club, because of the Lady name. I'm sure you can see some names that you're related to there. And then for another, I didn't quite get this. I tried to understand it, but I couldn't. But they had this sign up in the men's room. And maybe it got rowdy there, I don't know. And here's the other side, James Eade. So his daughter is buried in, they're all, they all went to the southwestern part of Wisconsin, and they're in that area. And so when I was with my cousin, she drove me around a little bit to look at the cemeteries, and this was in either Brieg or St. Earth, and this was just in the heart of where my family is from. Some more flora. There was one day, because I cheated, there was one day where for some reason I got more or less on the road, and I couldn't find a way to do it differently. And even though the road is only 2 lanes and people aren't going too quickly, it was a rather uncomfortable day. I wish I had, if that happens again, I'll make sure I suffer the path directly or find a different way. So I think I'm in Marazion, looking back at Penzance and seeing St. Michael's Mount. This is Marazion, beautiful flowers. Of course, I had to take a picture of a pasty. And this is very close to Land's End. A couple of the ruins of the mines. And being from Wisconsin, I don't see this very often. I'm always fascinated by ports at sea where the tides go out and the boats just lie there. And then the tides come back in again and they float. So a typical day was I would get up and about 8, I would be eating breakfast about 8, very nice breakfasts. And then I'd have to have my luggage out by 9. So I would be leaving before 9 o'clock. And I usually walk till about 4 in the afternoon. All but 2 days, I think, I found a nice place to have a lunch. One day I had a little lunch with me, and the other day I just kind of went hungry, but that was just kind of part of the deal. And but it was rather painful after walking the whole day to, wash up and rest a little bit, and then have to walk somewhere to find dinner. But that was okay too. And then the cairns were all over the place. I kind of find them fascinating. This was a farm where they had some more exotic animals. The next picture I have a kind of a story with. I think this is not the picture. This it really happened earlier in the walk, where on the 2nd or 3rd day, I wasn't using the exact coast path, and so I'd be walking through some fields, and On that day, I decided not to walk through that field, that I would find a longer way around because the cows were rather interested in me. I just put it that way. Again, it's fun to see the different names of the places nearby. And during this time, I think the next picture shows it a little bit better. I'll go back to this picture too, though. These were all over the place, and orange is my favorite color. So it was like every time I saw these plants, they were kind of greeting me. Just a brilliant orange. This is looking out from my room. So it was a sunny day. I think it was a sunny afternoon. Like I said, I didn't really complain about the weather much at all, even if it was cloudy, because it was good walking weather. And then in Helford, on that day, I think I walked to Helford, and then I took the bus back to the B&B, and then the owner dropped me off here again so I could take the ferry across to head towards Falmouth. So all the years my parents went to Cornwall, they stayed at the Gillyvay's house, or the hotel, motel, whatever. And their approach to visiting Cornwall was always, they had this as their center in Falmouth, and from there they took trips to other parts of the peninsula, and it worked out pretty well. I don't know how far that is from Truro, because my mom would do research there. And practically right across the street was my last B&B. Very simple room, but very comfortable. And I think this is the last one. The last couple of days, I spent an extra day in Falmouth before I headed out, and just kind of, looked at my career, 35 years or so as a teacher, and having finished the walk, and just took things in for the day. And that's it. So I'll stop sharing. And anybody have questions or comments? So from here, I'll just let John take over.
Oh, sorry, Thomas.
Yes.
Did you go to the Minehead Theater as you were walking, as you were going past that area, Fourth Colonel?
Well, I had some people say, did you go here? Did you go there? But for the most part, I was pretty dead. And other than, I really didn't do much other than walk and talk to people in the B&B. These, and so I missed a lot. I need to kind of think that through again sometime, but for the most part, I walked. So take it away, John.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. My name's John Trestrail. For the last several months, I've been helping out with CAHS with the membership roles and responsibilities. On a recent meeting, Tom mentioned, or I'd mentioned that I'm planning to walk a portion of the Southwest Coast Path in Cornwall this spring to Tom, and he told me he'd already done it before. I'm like, we need to get together and share notes so I know what to do and what not to do. And he decided to invite everybody else along on this call today so we can crowdsource some advice from everybody who's done it or or wants to do it. So a bit of background, my father and mother are on the call too. If you see somebody with the same name, my grandfather was from Redruth and emigrated to Michigan. Let me share my screen here. So I took my teenage kids, well, now they're 19 and 17. This was in 2015. We did a trip to Cornwall. We stayed half the time in Newquay on the north coast and half the time in Falmouth on the south coast. And I was really hoping that one day we could take a hike from Newquay down to Perranporth, where I'd stayed for a couple of weeks as a kid when I went over, I think in 1983 with my parents and aunt and uncle and grandmother. But my kids wanted nothing to do with hiking that kind of distance. So I just kind of put it in the back burner and said, I want to come back here and hike part of the Southwest Coast Path without my kids. I went back in 2017 with my wife and we stayed in St. Ives, but she was pregnant at the time, so she didn't want to do any real hiking. So again, I was planning to hike from like St. Ives to Zenor, but that didn't happen. So I'm like, I just need to go and do it by myself sometime. So I set a goal about 2-3 years ago that I would hike the entire portion of the Southwest Coast Path inside Cornwall. I wouldn't do it all in one go because I've got a job and kids and that would be impossible, but I'd break it up into stages. So Tom said this is about 630 total miles. The Cornish portion is just under 300 miles total. So I plan to do it in 3 stages: the North Coast, kind of the west end from St. Ives to Falmouth, which Tom is doing, and then come back and round it out on the southern coast from Falmouth up to Plymouth. So where did I start? So this is kind of the book on the Southwest Coast Path. It's pretty famous, Patty Dillon's book. It gives you every stage, maps, places to eat, and stay along the way. So I kind of read this religiously, studied it, and then from there went over to Google Maps. So I've been studying Google Maps religiously, understanding like day one, I'm going to start up here in Bude and I'm going to hike all the way around and look at all the features along the way. So I kind of broke it down into stages. Here's my trip itinerary starting in Bude. First day is 9.8 miles. There's some sites. I'm excited to see the Museum of Witchcraft in Crankington Haven. Then from there, going down to Tintagel, and all the different stops along the way. So just really kind of getting organized, breaking up into chunks that are manageable. You can see generally you're doing about 9 to 10 miles a day, but there's this big chunk the last day getting into St. Ives of about 18 miles. It's kind of scary. And the next step was to see if anybody would come and do this with me. Like my kids didn't want anything to do with it. But a couple of my friends said, yeah, this sounds awesome. We think Cornwall is beautiful. We'd love to come walk it with you. One of my friends is a friend from high school, but he's Canadian. He's concerned about COVID and healthcare restrictions. So he kind of bowed out a couple months ago. But my other friend, Jojo, who lives in Atlanta with me, we're in a rock band together. We hang out all the time. So he's down with me. I wrote a short article about that for the latest newsletter. So Jojo and I are setting out, just the two of us. We're mostly going to be sharing hotel rooms along the way, carrying our clothes in our backpacks, but no tents or sleeping bags or anything. So just kind of day packing and staying in hotels and bed and breakfasts along the way. So in addition to Patty's book, I read books of people who have walked all or part of the Southwest Coast Path, starting with Simon Armitage, Walking Away. Raynor Wynn had a great one about how she and her husband kind of were bankrupt and they ended up just wild camping along the coast path for a while, taking what life threw at them. And this guy Overend Watts, who was part of a Mott the Hoopla rock band back in the 60s and 70s, he walked the whole thing and backpacked. And I just finished last week reading this one by Elise Downing, who ran the entire coast of the UK over a 10-month period, running sometimes up to 40 miles a day. So I'm not planning to run any of this, but it was just kind of interesting, hearing how all these people experienced walking the portion of the path that I'm going to walk. And three themes kept coming up. One, the weather was very erratic. Some days it'd be hot, some days it'd be beautiful, other times it'd be winding and just raining on them nonstop. So I think in my mind, I had this idyllic vision. It's always going to be sunny and beautiful and cool, but I'm trying to temper that, knowing that there's probably going to be some days where we just get drenched on this walk in early May. Another thing these authors said was they got lost all the time. So I'm hoping that with like some apps on my phone, I'll be able to track it, but it seems like it's a fairly difficult path to follow sometimes. And it joins like roads and goes through farms and army bases. And so that can be kind of confusing too. And the third thing that they've consistently said is there's a ton of elevation change on this hike. So you're always going up and down, very little flat. So that has me a little bit worried. Jojo and I are both kind of portly guys. And I'm 48, I think he's 52. He's got a bad knee. So we're really not sure what we're getting ourselves into. So hopefully we can survive this. And if you see our itinerary, we factored in an extra day of rest here in Newquay. So a day with 0 miles. We're about 2/3 of the way through. We're just going to relax and try to recuperate it before we make the final push into St. Ives. So the way I went about this is breaking it down into these different stages that seem manageable. Initially, Patty Dillon has the first stage from Bude being much longer, but we said that's supposed to be one of the hardest parts of the path. So we broke that down into like 2 days, where normally the first 3 days of our hike would be 2 days in the book. We made it into 3 days just to make it a little easier on ourselves. Some of these little towns had very little in terms of accommodations, like in Crackington Haven. Like this is the only game in town if you want to stay in a hotel. So it's kind of expensive for a night, but it's either that or kind of sleep in the churchyard pretty much. So in most of the cases, Jojo and I are sharing a room with 2 beds. So fortunately, we've been on a number of boys' trips to see hockey games over the years. I know he's a big snorer, but I think we'll be able to get some sleep after a long day walking together. I put together a packing list, so I'm still working through this. I just dropped over $700 at REI the other week on clothes, since we're pretty much only going to be wearing what we can carry on our backs for 2 weeks or 10 days. So 2 rotations of clothes that we're going to wash and dry and hopefully not stink too badly in. But this is what I put together so far for a packing list. Don't know yet if I need hiking poles. Those are kind of expensive. I'm trying to find some used ones to borrow. And Ziploc bags in case it gets rained on. My dad's a big pipe smoker. I'm not, but I figured it might be nice to carry a pipe and a little tobacco so we could have something to do when we stop and have a beautiful vista to look over. So I'll just take a pause here, see if there's anybody who has comments, questions, advice. Since I don't have any stories to tell, I've performed on this. Hopefully we make it through. We're again starting on May 3rd will be our first day of hiking, and we plan to finish in St. Ives on May 12th. So about 9 days with a rest day kind of in the middle of it.
Hiking poles are essential, absolutely essential.
Good.
And if you haven't used them before, practice before you go, otherwise you'll trip over them. But with those ups and downs, it's absolutely essential. And both of you have mentioned the elevation change. It's brutal, but it's enjoyable. I just jumping in a bit. I put a link on the chat because I've done both the north and south side, but I did it the easy way. There's a company called HF Holidays. They base in St. Ives, and then they bus you out to the start, and you do your 10 miles or so, and then they bus you back. So that's very comfortable. You're not carrying anything. But yeah, it's still hard work. But those hiking poles, please take them. You will not regret it.
Thanks, John. That's good advice. It's what I needed to hear.
I'll second that. And
Yeah.
also you have to watch out for where the path has fallen in. They've had a lot of cliff falls.
That's right.
You may get detours on it. And never go too close to the edge to look over.
No, we had a leader with HF Holidays, so we didn't have any trouble. I don't recall being on the road anywhere. So if you did take diversions to the road, it's yeah. You mentioned the books. Where am I? The Salt Path, as you say, was a goodness me. That was rough camping, and it doesn't sound like either of you are going to do that. That was really hard work. The only pasty they bought, a seagull stole it from them before they could eat it. So the other one that I've read is 500-mile walkies, and that's someone that very similar, but did rough camping, but walked their dog around the trail. So there's some wonderful books on walking that trail. But I'm envious. Very good. And it's a good job you're going in May, because many of us will tell you that the summertime in Cornwall, it won't be so bad this year because the lockdown to Europe has been relaxed a lot. But the last 2 years, staycation sent everybody down to Cornwall.
Yeah,
But May,
originally I was hoping to go in early June,
no, May is much better.
but yeah, it just kind of worked out to do early May instead. And I'm concerned now that maybe we wouldn't have been able to find hotel rooms if we booked into June or July.
Mhm. Yeah.
No, it's a good choice. I usually go in May.
Do you get a lot of rain when you're hiking in May?
I don't hike. I stay there with my sister. But we do coastal path walks all the time. No, not a lot of rain.
Rubbish. You're going to England. It rains all the time. But it stops very quickly.
You usually take a rain jacket with you,
Mm.
a lightweight one. And you just
And,
go. You don't worry about the rain.
Just there. John,
Yep.
how did you go about finding your hotels? Did you just do it through one platform, or did you do it separately, or? How
As
did
I
you
say,
do
the
that?
HF Holidays have a house where you stay in St Ives, and then they bus you out to the start. You walk, and then the bus picks you up at the end of your 10 or 15K.
No,
So,
I was talking to the other John.
oh, sorry there.
Only because he has all these different places, and my company's doing the exact same thing, that it's all set up before I get there. But
Yeah, these places where you can get walking tours of Cornwall. One is called HF Holidays, where you stay, they have you stay there in St. Ives, and then they bus you out to wherever you want to walk, and you walk your 10 miles or whatever, and then they'll pick you up and bring you back into St. Ives.
That's the one I stayed with. That's the one I used.
Yeah, Tom, I mostly just looked at Google Maps and I focused in on the towns where we would be ending
yeah.
and saw what was in the town center. I didn't want to go too far out. There's also a website for the Southwest Coast Path. I think has hotel options for different areas. So sometimes I'd go into there, but basically just trying to find something that we wouldn't have to take a taxi to or walk too far to at the end of our
Right.
day, but still wasn't too expensive. And then I would email them or book online. And at the time I was setting up the appointments, it was a little bit touchy because, people weren't sure what was going to happen with COVID. We still don't know, right? So I was trying to book stuff, looking at cancellation policies in case, the UK goes on lockdown, or if we get to London and have to test for COVID and come up positive, you're supposed to quarantine for 2 days, which would ruin the trip. Now, in the meantime, since we've booked it, I think they've lightened the policy around COVID testing and quarantining. So I don't think that's a restriction at the moment, but you don't know what will happen months. So policy was almost as important as the rate. Can I book it now and get out if I need to?
Yeah.
I also did the same by going onto Google Maps and finding places, and then also booking.com is a good place to find places. But I just did it all on my own rather than go through a company to arrange it for me.
Doug, what did you hike? What area?
I went from I did the whole South Coast. So I went from Land's End to Plymouth 5 years ago.
How was it?
It was awesome. I went at the end of May, beginning of June. I think it was, I forget how many days. I've done other hikes and I can't remember the length of this one. I think it was like just 2 weeks I did it in. That part's 170 miles. And mainly I did the South Coast because my family comes from St. Austell. And so I wanted to make sure I was able to stay there. Yeah, that's my first time being in Cornwall. So I wanted to make sure I could do that. But I want to go back and do the North Coast. So that's why I'm interested in your talk.
Does the South Coast path go through Parr?
Yeah.
Yes, it would.
Mm-hmm. Is that where you?
So my grandparents were, or my grandma was from there.
Yeah.
And I published my itinerary in the newsletter too, just in case there's any readers who are going to be over there. It'd be great to meet up with somebody for a pint or a pasty someplace along the way. So I don't know if any of you are going to be on the North Coast in May, but if so, let me know.
I will second the idea about bringing the poles. I didn't have poles when I first went there. And there is so many steep elevations up and down and a lot of stairs, but like really, high steps. So that's when, for me, the poles really came in handy, because you kind of boost yourself up a step and, and also soften the landing as you're going down. So I actually bought them in Falmouth.
They're also useful for measuring the depth of a puddle or the mud.
Yeah, there's a couple of places where you have to walk across kind of a very shallow river, and they've got stones there, but they're very slippery.
Yeah.
And so I didn't have my poles at that point, but I really wished I had.
Very good. Any other comments?
Just a lot of you seem to know each other, and I'm here on the West Coast and don't know any of you. So I just wondered who's who and where you're from.
So I'm Tom Rusch and I live in Watertown, Wisconsin, which is in between Milwaukee and Madison. And the main Cornish area around here is southwestern Wisconsin, which is about an hour and a half, 2 hours from here.
Been to Mineral Point.
Yes, that's where all my dead relatives are.
Quite a few of us seem to be from Toronto in Canada.
Yes.
I'm from Michigan. I'm from Lower Michigan, but all four of my grandparents came to the Upper Peninsula to mine copper. And so they obviously got married, and one was married, one couple was married, one wasn't. And they got married as soon as she got off the boat in New York. But my son is the one eating the pasty with us. Chris Haynes is my son.
And I'm from Oregon, but originally from California. So my Cornish great-grandfather was one of the gold miners that came over and worked in the gold mines of California.
I'm in California, but my Cornish background's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan.
I'm in Mississauga, just outside Toronto, and my Cornish grandfather immigrated to Saskatchewan in Canada.
Oh, wow.
I'm in Vancouver, Washington. My Cornish grandfather immigrated to British Columbia. And I think Grandma was engaged to somebody else, but Grandpa was already on this continent. So I don't know what happened to the other guy, but her life goal was to get to California, where her dad had come and worked on the railroads and must have told a lot of stories. So
Anyone else?
What is it that you're asking? I'm sorry, I joined late.
Just where we're from and our relationship to our Cornish ancestry.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in Southern California now. I was born and raised in Chicago. Mine came from St. Blasey to Canada, Pickering Township, east of Toronto. They were farmers there, and then 1881 moved down to Chicago, and then I'm the one that moved west.
Very good. John's back.
I don't think I can.
Yeah, I dropped for a couple of minutes. Sorry, Tom, my internet went down, but
Just so you're back. Anyone else? And I'll just plant a seed here, we're hoping to have a gathering in person, a year from now or 2 years from now. So hopefully we can get some interest to actually have one in person and maybe even have it Zoom as well. So keep that in mind as we go from meeting to meeting and issue of the newsletter to another issue.
That's fine.
Just think about it.
The talk with Ron James starts at 2:00 Eastern Daylight Time. It says 11, but we had changed it.
Oh, very
So,
good. Thank
Make
you.
it easier for West Coast people to,
Yes.
you don't
Thank you
have
for
to get
catching
up and
that.
watch in your pajamas. So the time is 2:00, but you do have to register. So maybe Chris, could you send out a link again and maybe put it on Facebook so that if some of these people would like to watch that one or join in, they'll have the right link and the right time.
Can I mention a selfish thing? The Toronto Cornish Association has their meeting on the same day, April 9th.
Yeah, we're not going to do the 3rd. Well, we're trying to watch your date so that we don't conflict, because we've done it. We have conflicted several
That's
times,
an
and I want to
exact
get out of
conflict,
that.
and I'm the
Yeah.
speaker that day, and I was going to do
Oh, no.
the folklore of Cornwall, and I was looking forward to grab something from Ron James earlier in the morning to steal from. but-
Oh, no, we changed the time because so many found it
Indeed.
hard to get up.
Well, it's
on
all
the East
Wesley's fault.
Coast.
Where's he gone? No, Wesley from
Wesley's right underneath you on the board.
yeah, from California.
Yeah.
We keep bumping into each other these days.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid it. I thought for a while that you were always the 3rd Saturday.
But it's Easter. It's the Easter weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's why.
Weekend
That's
is
why
Easter.
you went up one. Yeah,
That's right.
that's probably why we did it too.
Can I just move to a slightly different topic? I wanted to let you know, and Wesley will know this. I was trying to organize a webinar on the DNA of Cornwall.
Oh.
And that has now been arranged, and it's now been confirmed, and the system's in place. I've got a link. It's going to be run out of the British Isles Family History Society of Greater Ottawa, BAFISCO, and they will make it available to everybody. And so, can I pass that on? Where's Thomas? Can I pass that on to you for promoting to people?
Yeah.
It's in April. It will be 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. But I'll send you the note, Thomas and
Very good.
Caroline.
Yeah,
So
it's
this-
April 20th.
That's April the 20th. It's a Wednesday. Joe Flood's in Australia, and anybody
Oh,
who
cool.
does the family tree DNA work will know of him through the Cornish project he's working on. So he's agreed to do a back to basics plus the Y-DNA material that's explained in the prehistoric Cornish. So So that's rather special, I thought. So I'll pass on the information, Thomas, and we can get that promoted.
Yeah,
Excellent.
thank you, John.
Thank you.
On a related issue, Befisco, the current president has indicated to me that I will not be one of those presenting at the conference this fall, but he has said that he would like to schedule at one of their monthly presentations that I give the presentation.
That's wonderful.
And it will be the same one that I gave last summer.
That will be super. Yeah, thank you. No, because I'm on the committee there for the conference planning, and I see that he didn't have your name in there. You were in the drafts, but yeah, because the Befisco's conference in September is going to be on Zoom, so they were looking out for material from immigration from England, and for some reason, Befisco have never recognised the Cornish as a separate group, so it's hard work to remind them we exist. So
Well,
maybe,
I have given them a tip, and they are going to follow up on it. There will be an interactive map. It's a website called Padlet, and they will have this map where you can put a push pin in exactly where your ancestors came from. I mean, in Bodelva, in this, which is a little hamlet in the St. Blaise parish, which is just a stone's throw away from the Eden Project, I've put in the draft map that they've created, I put a pin in there, so you can put it in exactly where your ancestors came from, and then you put a text associated with it. You put the surnames you're searching in that spot, and then your contact information. So it'll help people connect who came from different parts of Cornwall and all over the British Isles.
Very good. Very good. Any other conversation?
just another note, you may remember the name Rosalie Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
She was president of CAHS,
Very
as well as very much involved in the Toronto Cornish. She sort of went missing for a while. Sorry, my phone's ringing, if you can hear. She went missing for a while, but we've tracked her down in Cornwall, Ontario. And so this has been wonderful just to make the contact again. So if anybody remembers Rosalie from time back, that she's doing well.
Good. That's good to hear. Thank you.
Have you guys been sending out newsletters? Because I haven't received any for quite a while. I learned about this on Facebook.
Did you, are you talking about the Cornish American Heritage Society?
Yes.
If you have dropped your membership, you won't be getting a newsletter, and we have gone to email newsletters. If you send me your email, if somebody's got it, somebody must have your email in order to send you the link to this message. I will send you a newsletter and you can get back on the membership list.
Ruth, I'll send you the information to register so we get all your information and get you on that distribution for the future.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Just so you understand, right now we changed our governance so that there's no membership fee or anything, and anybody can join. But you do have to register as a COETHA, as a member. So we have your email on hand, and that's what John was saying too. But I'm kind of reiterating for other people that there is a kind of a registration to become a member. But other than that, it's very informal. So if you want to make sure you get all of our emails and information, that you have to be registered in that way.
Do you have to register every year? Because I had thought that I had registered at one point.
Was that since the gathering?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm also a member of the California Cornish Cousins, and so I have seen some of this stuff from them as well, but I haven't gotten anything from you guys for quite a while.
Well, we'll get you on the list.
We'll get you on the list.
Okay, great.
Glad you
I
brought
heard
that up.
about this through the Pacific Northwest Cornish Society. So.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
I
they,
better get on the list.
yeah, they send the newsletter out to all of you.
That's how I heard about it too.
Good.
So if you want to become a COETH just means friend. So if you want to do that, just there's a link in the CAH newsletter that you can fill out and send in, and then John gets you on the list.
I'll also push out that link to everybody who registered for this. Just I'll email it to you. So look for that
Okay.
coming from me.
Yeah. Thanks, John.
Great. Thank
Thanks,
you.
I've got piles of old newsletters that my mom kept.
Very good. Okay, thank you everyone for attending today. Hope you got something from it. I'm all enthused now to go back there. It's been a long haul I was originally going to go on a trip in April of 2020, and well, that didn't happen. So this is my first big thing since the pandemic, and hopefully we won't have any problems with the pandemic when we're over there. So thank you for all attending, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
We look
advice.
We look forward to seeing the photographs of your trip.
Very good.
Yeah, well, they'll have a repeat.
Good.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care,
Bye.
everyone.